Hello and welcome to our podcast on Steve Nguyen, Emergency Medical Technician and Paramedic. Steve is the coordinator of the Emergency Medical Services programs at Tulsa Tech, where you can become certified as an Emergency Medical Technician, an EMT, while you are still in high school. After graduation, you can then take additional courses required to become a paramedic. Steve first got his EMT certification and started working for emergency medical service providers while he took classes to become a paramedic. He then completed a bachelor's in business management with the idea of working his way up the corporate ladder at EMSA, where he was employed as a paramedic. But Steve's career path changed after he was hired as a part-time instructor at Tulsa Tech and found he also had a passion for teaching. He went back to school once more for a master's in education and now heads the program. Like many young people, Steve was not sure what he wanted to do when he graduated from high school, but he knew he wanted a career doing something that would give him passion, pride, and purpose, what he calls his 3 Ps. He decided to get an EMT certification during his junior year of college and found the 3 Ps he was looking for in a career, helping people in medical emergencies, and later combined this passion with the passion he had for teaching. Steve also gives back by serving the community as a volunteer for the Educational Foundation at Union High School and the American Heart Association. The growth in middle-aged and elderly population is expected to lead to an increase in age-related health emergencies, such as heart attacks and strokes, and create a strong demand for EMT and paramedic services. There are also opportunities for professional growth. Emergency room registered nurses or paramedic supervisors are common next steps for paramedics who want to move up the career ladder, and medical employers often pay the cost of additional training. Please enjoy our interview of Steve Nguyen.
For me, just kind of start out my background, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I know from my dad, the guidance was become a doctor or become an accountant or CPA.
Mm-hmm.
Not an accountant, a CPA. Because of death and taxes were two things that were evident and needed. And I feel fortunate. My dad was an immigrant and obviously has been a U.S. citizen after war, Vietnam War, and so I'm a first-generation American.
Oh, wow.
And it's funny because some people say, are you a boat person? And I remember ignorantly in high school, I don't think we have a boat. Let me ask my dad, how did you know we had a boat, And so learning that my background from Vietnam, a lot of my dad's countrymen came over on a boat, and he was fortunate because in a third world country, either you're wealthy or you're poor. There's not that middle class. And so my siblings and all of us were able to fly out in 1975. And then my dad flew out a month after they did. And we had a sponsor that sponsored us to Arkansas. And I was born here. And so never really thought of myself in that way. But it was very eye-opening because I think education is the best equalizer. And that was one of the things that was really stressed in my family. And so when I told them I wanted to be an EMT, it was almost a disappointment, to struggle from the country where they came from, and my dad being educated there and then going back to education here and then subsequently paying for my college. But we think, what do I want to do? Do I want to just make money? Do I want to have a purpose? And so to the young people, what I say to them that come in, because we do tours every Thursday, and you get to meet the instructor. You mostly talk to me, and on Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon, you can talk to any of the staff. And a lot of times the students, the potential students, will just come in. And so I'll take 10 or 20 minutes to talk to them. And the recurring theme that I have is, what's your passion? Why do you want to do this? And what makes you prideful? What gives you pride in doing what you think you want to do? And then what's your purpose? And so those 3 Ps are important. And I think, you hear that in I've heard that before. So it's not anything that I just invented. I've heard it before.
Sure.
But we really got to give them a passion. Okay, so if you want to help others, and if you do this, you have to be prideful of the profession and you and what you represent. And for us to get there, you have to have a purpose. You have to have kind of a game plan.
What was your personal experience that kind of brought you into it? You said you told your dad you wanted to be an EMT. What got you to that point?
Well, for me, I went to college, and I kind of broke the traditional mold. My siblings, there's 6 of us. All my other siblings, they went to college to be an engineer, to be a computer, the professional degrees.
Right.
And so I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to go waste my time and money. So I went to, at the time it was TCC, but it was known as TJC. So I went to junior college to kind of take my courses and stay at home with my dad and my younger sibling. And I got a lot of grief for that, but I can tell you I don't have any debt.
Mm-hmm.
Even with my master's and working on my doctorates, I don't have any debt.
Right.
I haven't taken out loans.
That's a big deal. That really is, because a lot of kids right now, I mean, I've got a whole list of kids I talk to that got about $40,000 worth of student loans just going to OSU and getting a business degree or something.
Absolutely.
Not being able to do much with it after. So that's a real big point.
And so I tried to look outside the mold, and I felt like I was the non-traditional student.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was to kind of preach that I should go to college, get a degree, you'll get a job, and you'll make, 40 to 60,000 a year, and you'll be fine. But I didn't have that passion or pride. I knew the purpose of what I needed to do, but didn't have that passion.
Mm-hmm.
And so aimlessly taking some of these courses at OU after going to TCC, get my associates.
What did you major in?
Accounting and finance.
Oh, okay.
And I was less than 30 hours away from my degree, and I took a course at Moore Norman Technology Center, which was the EMT class. So there's EMT, which is about 16 weeks long.
Mm-hmm.
From there, you can go into paramedic, which is about a year to 2 years, depending on where you go. And so I really enjoyed the EMT medical side, and from there I kind of flourished, got my paramedic, and then I went to go work at EMSA.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, my fiance, girlfriend, she just graduated from OU as a teacher. So she was coming back to Tulsa. So I came back to Tulsa, went to, at the time it was UCAT, all the schools together, but then I eventually graduated from Langston with a business management degree. I thought I would work my way through the corporate ladder at EMSA, and I found that the rewarding aspect of my job was patient interaction, but also mentoring and teaching new employees the ropes. And so when a position came opened up in Tulsa Tech in 2004, I applied. And at that time, I thought, I wouldn't mind being a firefighter. So I also applied for Broken Arrow, and I got both offers. And my wife said, maybe you should do education. I can help you there. And I said, well, I'm not a teacher. And we've all gone to school, and we naturally think, well, this is how you should be taught, on how you learn. But I really kind of had a crash course on just instruction 101, and then accepted the position at Tech, and then I got my master's in education to be a better teacher, and so that's kind of how I came about where I am here. But I think for me, it's always been about my passion and purpose, and I could have excelled, I think, in the business world, but I wasn't happy.
Sure.
And I think that's the problem with some of our young adults, is that, well, you have to get a college degree to be successful, and that's not always the case. I think it helps you, but I think for the most part, unless it's a specialized degree like engineering or, like a law degree or something, but for me, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And for me, I went to Union Public Schools, and I felt like they've helped give me a lot of tools to be successful. And so I've gone back, and I volunteer with their foundation. And, it's about helping, giving more than you receive. And that's really what it's about for me. I'm not saying that I'm not doing this for my own personal growth and advancement, but, I'm very happy
Mm-hmm.
I think happiness is more important than being miserable and having money. Not that I have money excessively, but I think I'm very happy.
That's great.
So
that's great. Now you started out in over at EMSA, and what was the first certification you got?
Well, my first certification and license that I received was for my EMT, and then from there I got my paramedic. And at EMSA, I came to them with these credentials.
So you had both of those?
So you had to have those before you could gain employment.
Now let me go back, and I've read through some of the stuff that Tulsa Tech's taught, and from being with Ryan here, going through a lot of the programs that Tulsa Tech has. It seems like the goal of Tulsa Tech is to give you that initial certification that gets you on the ladder.
Absolutely.
And then you move from there into different sorts of things. So the certification that you teach the kids in high school, that are high school kids or
adults,
that they're taking at the same time, that's an initial certification. Is that like a level 1 or something? What do they call that?
It's really just called your EMT certification.
Okay.
And your EMT license.
And what does that allow you to do?
It allows you to work in the ambulance, drive the ambulance, perform assessments, help the paramedic.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a level of EMT, and then there's some other levels, but predominantly what we teach is EMT and paramedic.
Mm-hmm.
So you minimally have to have your EMT, and you can go as high as paramedic.
Here at Tulsa Tech?
Here at Tulsa Tech,
okay.
Yes.
So how long is the paramedic program?
Ours here is about 15 months long.
Okay.
We have a daytime offering and a nighttime offering. Our daytime offers is in August of every year, and our nighttime starts in January, and that's our night class. It's 4 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
The night class is 20 hours a week, and the day class is 24.
Okay.
So the day class finishes a little bit sooner, like 14 months, but it's about 15 months.
Okay, now I talked to Stan May that runs the Tulsa Fire Department's recruiting and PR and stuff. And he was saying that to be a fireman, you've got to have, is it a paramedic or is it just an EMT? I can't remember what they were saying.
I don't know what stands in the Tulsa Fire's new requirement. What I do remember that they required was you had to have 18 years of age, a high school equivalent or GED,
Right.
and they don't have it on their job description, but you need at least an EMT license.
That's what I remember.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I remember.
Mm-hmm.
So you get people coming in here that not just want to work in hospital, but also people that want careers in the fire department.
Yes, sir. Fire department, hospital, a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of jobs can they get with this EMT degree versus paramedic? And I mean, what would what kind of careers would they be looking at if they went through your program?
Some of the different career choices that they have is directly to the ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
They could also work in the urgent care center setting.
Mm-hmm.
They could also work in the emergency room as a tech there to help with the nurse and the physicians. Obviously, be eligible for the fire department. And so those are some of the obvious places that our students are pursuing. We do have some situations where, and this is probably more for paramedic, they do the offshore drilling. So if you're doing offshore drilling for oil, they'll house some medical folks there, and typically they hire paramedics, and so we've had a couple students that have come and touched base with us and said, hey, I'm taking care of offshore drillers. And so I'm out there for a few months. Typically, I think it's a month. And then they come back for a month. And so they're on and off for a month. And so those are some of the things that I've kind of seen. The other thing is some of our students use this to kind of bridge some of their licenses and go on to nursing.
Oh, really?
So if you get your EMT, which is about 16 weeks long, a semester, You can then go into paramedic, which is about a year. Upon passing your paramedic license and having the nursing prerequisites, because they have prerequisites, you can go to TCC, Connors, or Rose State and do a bridge within 1 year and get a nursing license.
Is that an LPN?
That would be an associate's degree nursing, which is an RN. And so you have your LPN or practical nurse, which we also offer here at Tulsa Tech. But if you go the RN route, you can have an associate's. Now, with nursing is unique because you can have an associate's nurse, BSN nurse, MSN nurse, and then even a nursing doctorate, which is kind of like, doctor nurse. So that's interesting. So some of our students have even flown on the helicopter, kind of like a Tulsa Life Flight, Metaflight, and so those are some other opportunities.
Yeah, I've got a neighbor down the street. She just retired, and she started out. She went and got a 2-year degree. I think it was at Tulsa Community College, and then she ended up going and started as an LPN.
Okay.
And then she ended up getting her RN through the hospital paid for that. And then she was a light flight nurse, and then eventually she got to be a physician's assistant. And just, like making 90% of what a doctor did. And she did the same thing you did. She didn't take out any loans. She did it deliberately, and she worked nights, and she raised a family and had 2 kids during the whole thing. Just amazing what you can do when you think about it, and they're really, dedicated to go through with it. Now, when you said, one of the things that I thought was interesting about what you just said is, you're talking about the way you can affect people and things. I mean, what kind of experiences did you have, and where you were on an ambulance, or you were doing something where you helped a person that was in distress from an accident or something like that? I mean, is there anything that stands out that, said, hey, this is, or several instances and said, hey, this is something I want to do?
I think for me, some of the memories that I recall, is really being there to help in their time of need, and taking into retrospect that my life really isn't that bad. I have my health, I have the love of my wife and my children, a home. Life isn't that bad, and it's really great. And I think it's all about perspectives, because we get into that situational poorness. I don't have the new curved TV. I don't have the newest, this, that, and the other. And in reality, when you can get up and you have a meal and a roof, you really can't beat that. And I think for me, what pride I have is seeing the students that we've produced, being an instructor, and seeing the effects of the students. I remember it's always those first kiss, first car. And my first class that I taught was a paramedic class. And I keep in touch with those students to this day.
Okay.
And one of the students, his name is Jared Linthicum. He's with Owasso Fire as a captain. He was probably one of the youngest captain promoted, because going back, what should I do? Go to college? I don't know what to do. I'll just keep on taking classes. Well, he was kind of a non-traditional. He has his associates, and he's also going to school, but that wasn't necessary for him to promote. And so I feel like he's one of my success stories.
Spell his name for me again.
Jared, Jarrod, Linthicum, Linthicum.
Linth. What was the rest of it?
ICUM.
ICUM. Okay.
And really, the success stories that I feel like I am proud of most is being part of a student organization. For us, it's called HOSA, Health Occupation Students of America, and now I think they just call it HOSA. I'm trying to find his business card while we're talking. But I participated as a student when I was going to school down at where did I go to school? Metro Tech. I got my paramedic down at Metro Tech, and was a student, competed, and then coming back as an instructor, I was an advisor. And as an advisor, I was able to have national winners through Jared. Jared was one of my national HOSA winners. And so to see it from the student participant as the advisor and then as a national winner with them was one of the best memories professionally that I've experienced.
That's great. Well, don't worry about it. Now, I'll send you a draft. I'd like to use his name as an example. I thought that was a great one to see somebody. It's always good to see people that graduate from these programs and some of the things they've done. I always like to use examples like that. I think it personalizes the thing a little more.
Sure. Well, and he's one of my success stories that I feel like, and we keep in touch on a regular basis. I spoke to him just last week, and I was able to get him on as an instructor also. So he taught for us.
There's a write-up on him, isn't there, in your Tulsa Tech somewhere? Is that somebody different?
Somebody different.
Okay, I thought that somebody sounded like I couldn't remember, didn't remember the fire department. Remember the guy, I thought he was an instructor or something.
Yeah, Josh Crum, he's one of our full-time.
That's the guy. Okay.
And Josh came through the program. I wasn't here. I was still on the ambulance working, getting my experience. But he came through here, and then we were able to hire him on. And
how much time when you were with them, so how much time did you spend actually, working in the ambulance?
I was full-time for about, let's see, I started here in 2002. And so, no, I'm sorry, I started there in 2002, here in Fort. So I was there full-time for about 2 years. And then I stayed part-time with them up until about 2009.
Okay.
And then from 2009 to about 3 years ago, I was with a service called Creek County, and I worked there part-time.
Okay.
But, and typically we would work 12-hour shifts, and with the 12 hours counted to almost 13, 14-hour days. And we'd get late calls, and the nature of this business isn't I'm here for my 8 hours, I'm done. There's sacrifice that has to be made, I think, to the family life, and so kind of having a good support system is very important.
Is it like a nurse where you've got like 4 days on and then
3 days off? Yeah.
Days off. Okay.
Typically, yeah.
Yeah. No, I've heard from nurses and everybody else, like you said, the families, and it's hard sometimes. Firemen have a big problem with that too.
Absolutely.
So if you're a kid in high school, is there any particular classes a kid in high school should emphasize, or any things that they should, spend more time on? I know they've got electives and things. What sort of coursework in high school would you say they need to be, concentrating on if this is something they want to do?
I definitely want to make sure that they qualify to graduate with the increase in the credits, depending on what school you're attending. But I think the sciences are important, like the anatomy, the physiology, and really the desire to be here. Our course in high school is just as rigorous as our adults.
Okay.
And they have to be 18 years of age to go to clinical. So there's a lot of requirements to qualify to sit for your license. And part of that is being 18, and then also having a good knowledge. It's almost like taking a foreign language, because there's medical terminology that they have to be aware of. And so I would say the sciences and then your just English language, you know, make sure that you're competent to comprehend what you're reading. So.
Do they use any math? Is math important?
We
at
do
all?
have some math for paramedic if you decide to go on, but it's not really past the algebra level.
Just algebra.
Yeah, algebra, fractions, you know, drug calculations. So it's not like you're doing
Not like an engineer doing calculus.
No, you're not doing, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. It really is. Steve, that's really good. I've got a lot of stuff as far as your coursework goes. You know, the Tulsa Tech provides a lot of things on the individual courses that you have to take, anatomy and some of the other things that are in there. So I've got a list of those.
Sure.
Is there anything else, like you talked about clinical? Is there anything about that experience that, I mean, what does clinical really mean? I mean, when you say, you know, the kids that go for clinical, do they go work in an ambulance then? Is it kind of like an apprentice deal, or what is that experience like?
Well, what it looks like is a application of the concepts and theories that are discussed in class that are then practiced in the lab that hopefully transcend into a real-world environment. And before you get to a clinical or a work-based experience, the students have to qualify with a drug test, unannounced drug test. And so not only is it important that you have an academic qualifications, because they still have to graduate. They still have to, you know, have that component. So maybe that's the carrot and the stick, so that they'll be a completer with their institution, with their home high school. Because I think if you don't have that purpose, why am I doing this? Well, you're doing this so that you can do this, which is fun. And I know Tulsa Tech does a lot of recruiting even at the middle school, because if we have graduation dropouts at 8th grade because they don't see that vision, then they don't get here to us.
Right.
When they're not being a productive, you know, community member. So before you can go to a work-based experience or clinical, you have to pass a drug test, and you have to have the immunizations that most students typically have, like the measles, mumps, rubella, the flu, hepatitis, varicella, those immunizations that we talk about at our program tours. And a lot of this is information that's already provided by family members, mom, dad, school.
So when you say clinical, then clinical is really not getting in an ambulance or something. It's really getting into a lab. It's a lab clinical as opposed to a real world clinical.
We have both of those. Yeah, they actually have 36 hours of ambulance hospital observation and participation.
Okay.
And so that kind of typically happens about a third into the class. We want to make sure that they have the basis and foundation to go and administer CPR or help in the rescue or aid of a patient that needs some type of intervention. But they don't get all their training, you know. And things towards the end are like delivering a baby. Well, they'll probably want to watch, you know. They'll probably want to watch.
Sure.
So I think, so yes, they do have that real world, firsthand touch, smell, all of that. But we also want to make sure when they go out there, they're not doing something that can harm the public.
Right.
So they have to be competent. And so, you know, I tell people what we do isn't rocket science, but you got to be able to do it from a cold start. 3 in the morning, you can't say, I need to brush my teeth, I need to take a shower, I need a cup of coffee, and then I'll come and take care of you. You know, when you're called, you have to respond. You have a duty to act. And if you don't act upon that duty, then you're abandoning your patient, and you can have legal ramifications from that lack of action. And so that's kind of.
So how many kids do you have in your class a year? I mean, how many do you graduate in your high school and your adult program?
You know, our enrollment numbers kind of wean. It kind of goes up and down. And we used to offer 4 classes a semester. So each class was 20 students. So you're looking about 160 for 2 semesters, and then that doesn't include paramedic. So we used to have as high as about 220, but I think our numbers now, because it's about quality, you know, we just, so we're about, let's see, 80, we're about 160.
Okay. Now, you've got strict, I mean, not everybody that applies gets in that, is that right? I mean, or how do you weed these kids out? I mean, what do they do to qualify or have to do to qualify?
Well, that component, it entails our admissions department. So every student fills out an online application. They also do a interest survey question of, you know, what are you interested in, so that we can kind of identify the best plan of study or best career path for their interest. And then from there, they'll answer 3 questions, where the instructors will then score these 3 questions based on a rubric. And we used to do a face-to-face, but that kind of entailed a little bit of bias. And so by doing an online interest questionnaire, that bias is taken out. Some people will write a couple sentences. Some will say, I want to be an EMT, and that's it. So we may not score those as high because I just want to be an EMT. Well, tell us more why.
I got you.
You know, so it's off of a 100-point scale. So your comprehension, reading, math, your survey questions, and then also we do a program tour. So you get the whole points if you show up. And by showing up, that's where we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. And I don't lie to them. I tell them all the bad. I scare them not to come here, not because I don't want them to come here. I don't want them to say, oh man, I went through this course, I paid this money, I don't want to do this. And that's happened. That's happened to me when I was instructor. And I felt bad for the student because he paid his tuition, and then he decided, I didn't realize it was what it was. I thought it was something else. And by that time, it was too late.
So what kind of things do you, when you say you try to scare them, what do you tell them? I mean, what do you think a lot of people don't realize when they get into the...
I think the time, the commitment, the sacrifice. And it's not so much a scare, it's just the truth.
Sure.
The truth of the nature of what you're going into. You know, we're fortunate that if there's a snow day, we're off. It doesn't work that way, and that meant for me, that meant I had to get up 2 hours early.
Right.
So when my shift was at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 to 4, that meant I got up at 2. That meant I went to bed. I ate something and I went straight to bed because I knew the snow was there, and I had to take 2 hours to get to work.
It's real interesting because, I mean, I hear kids all the time talking about, well, they don't like me, they don't like this. I reposted one that I wrote a little while ago about a guy that's, he's only 30, and the guy was ADD and fought through everything, but he's now the executive chef for ExpoServe, which does everything down, and not at the fairgrounds, but at the BOK Center. They do the Phil Brooks Gourmet Kitchen and a whole bunch of stuff. This guy, but he started at Tulsa Tech and took the chef's classes there and got some awards and things that got him a scholarship to go to a really fine culinary school, one of the top 10 in the country up in Denver. And he just worked his way right up, and when the older guy retired, there were a whole bunch of people working over there at NSERV, and he said this was the guy they picked because he was so good. And you know, the one thing that he talked about that a lot of kids don't even like about being a chef, and this is true for all sorts of things, is they don't understand the hours. I mean, the hours are just incredible when you have to go through and do that. And he was saying the same thing. I mean, you know, people eat in the evening, you know, and then you've got to get the food for the evening. So you're up early in the morning buying food and fresh groceries. So he says it's a total time commitment. I mean, it's just amazing. It's like being a doctor or nurse or something. I don't understand that. Do you? I mean, why kids think that I mean, I don't know anybody that's successful who works 40 hours a week, do you? I mean, it's really...
Well, it depends on your definition of success.
Okay, I guess maybe that's it.
I mean,
that's it.
if you want to work 40 hours a week and utilize work-life balance for kids or family or whatever, and that's your definition of success, then sure. But there are a lot of professions that require 60, 70 hours a week.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. I don't think too many people realize that.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, will you do a brief explanation of, if I'm looking at the webpage right now for EMT alone, and I see that there's an adult full-day program that's 13 to 14 weeks, adult 15 weeks in the evening, but the high school is either a semester or a school year. Can you kind of explain the difference between the semester and the school year program?
Sure. For the high school, they're a year long, from August to May. And the first semester, they're going to potentially receive 2 different certifications. Earlier, I alluded to the different levels of EMS licensure. The most common one is EMT. So there's actually the first level, which is the emergency medical responder, called the EMR. After that, you can go on and take EMT. After that, you can take what's called a advanced EMT. And the final and highest level is paramedic.
Okay.
EMR is about 2 weeks long, about 70 hours. Typically, you'll see EMR as a volunteer firefighter, somebody in the community that also responds to medical calls, and so that's typically what you see. You also see EMR or EMTs on the SWAT teams, so they're the guys or gals that help kind of take care of their fellow officers. EMT is the most common one that we have here, and for high school, they do the EMT the second semester, which is in the springtime. And so we have a traditional semester long in the August to December, and then from January to about beginning of May, and then we have a summer fast track class. The summer fast track class is 2 months long. It's 4 days a week, 8 to 4:30. Clinicals are done on Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Not every week, but that's the opportunity of when they can do it. And so they have 36 hours of clinical.
Now, what kid, who generally joins that class? Is that high school kids or mostly adults that would want to be on that?
We've kind of seen both.
Really?
Yes. We've seen some high school kids that, for whatever reasons, they were doing band, they're doing other things. So they graduated from high school, but they're really not classified to high school. I'm sorry. They're really adult students, but they were in high school just...
They missed out on
Yes.
that other program, and they
Yes.
decided they want to come back and get it. Okay.
And they have the opportunity to take advantage of our Accelerating Independent Scholarship. I'm sorry, my mind went kind of blank there. I was going to talk about, anyway, so the Accelerating Independent Scholarship is something that they can take advantage of. And so we've also had some college students from OU, OSU, surrounding areas that, you know, I want to be a physician, I want to be a nurse, but I don't know what type of specialty I want to go into, so I'm going to try this EMT. And so we've had that happen, and so our our summer EMT fast track class has had a combination of college students. This last summer, we only had 1 or 2 college students. The rest were working adults. We need to find a career, a job, a purpose. This will help meet that goal.
That's great.
Did that answer all your questions, Ryan? So August adult is about 16 weeks every semester from August and January, and then our high school is a year long. And here's the thing with high school students, I want to be a doctor. I want to be, it's almost like they and I flip of a switch, and that's great. You know, they're learning, they're trying out what they want to do. So if we have some high school EMT students that come through the first semester and they do it and they're like, I don't want this. I want to transfer out at semester. They can, but they'll also be a partial completer because they'll get that EMR license if they so choose. And so we say, you know what, you've already put a semester in here. Let's put a license on your resume. Okay. You know, and so it's not only about licensure and certification, it's also about exploring what path, what your potential is.
The only reason I asked that was because if a high school student looks at our website and sees one semester to one school year, it can be a little confusing.
Well, and I've talked to our folks about that, and I think that kind of spurs that. Okay, so what do I do? What is this purpose? You know, we used to partner with sports medicine program that we had. That's a high school. So the first semester they were learning about anatomy, some sports medicine related, and if they didn't want to continue down that athletic training route, they would come to us the second semester, so in January, and then we would teach them EMT. And it became such a good enrollment number, and students were wanting to do this, that we were able to make it a full year. So we started as just a second semester, they come here, and the class was about 12, 16, 18. It consistently was full, and people were consistently calling, so we decided just to do our own year-long course.
And they get to do cool things like land a life flight here on campus.
Oh, wow.
And so the kids get a chance to do cool stuff, you know, like have that and get to see the actual helicopter and things.
Yeah, email me that, can you?
Yeah.
That'd be great. We'll put that picture in. Do you have a JPEG? I saw one in your, do you have a JPEG, Steve, or something? Or
Did we come up and do headshots? Yeah.
They've got one of full body of you.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Who does?
It's on the website.
What do you mean they?
Well, somebody's got one on there. It's on Facebook and LinkedIn.
That sounds
anyway.
awesome.
Oh, you know, I think on my Facebook account, there's a full body of me standing next to the T.
Yeah, there you go.
I think it was just a, hey, you know, we need a picture of you, so I just stood there.
Have we come up and done headshots at this campus yet?
I think you did, but I think I was unavailable or something happened where I didn't think I had a headshot.
Well, let me do this while I'm here. This iPhone will take really good pictures. You mind if I take one here, and if you find another one you like, I can always crop them down. I mean, even if you've got something that's full body that you like, better if you can send me the JPEG, I can crop it and get it on Pixel.
Oh, I'm easy, whatever. It's fine with you.
So, up to you. What do you want to do?
Right.
This is your picture. I'm gonna send him this life flight picture, and then I have other. I can send him
I'll tell
2
you
or
what,
3 others.
It's up to you. I don't care. We'll take
I'll
it
tell
right
you
now.
what. Why don't you wait and you know, just sometime you're dressed the way you want to be, and whenever have your wife take a picture of a JPEG, and you can email it to me when we do your draft, or I can do one right now.
I'll just do one right now.
I'm doing right
Say,
now?
Yeah, I don't have any.
You look good, so I wouldn't.
Want to go out a little bit better lighting? I kind of.